most of this information is available online as well. All right, so we'll get started. This month we decided to do a Dreamforce highlights, and really it was to help spark conversations about some of the features that were discussed at Dreamforce. The very first thing I'd love to see, if you could, show your hand by clicking on the little hand button. Did anyone go to Dreamforce? It's the first thing we'd love to know. I didn't anticipate too many hands going up, but we thought we'd ask all the same. Did anyone attend remotely through the Salesforce Plus application? Excellent. So there definitely are a lot of recordings on Salesforce Plus. You did not have to attend in real time in order to see the presentations. So you can go back and start to look at them if you'd like to. What we've done is we have a fairly short presentation just to help walk through some of the highlights that were discussed at Dreamforce. So for those that aren't aware, sorry, administrative things, we will be recording this, so please raise your hand if you have a question. We do have a question and answer period at the end, but like I just said, this is a fairly loose conversation, and we want to make sure we get the most value possible. I hope everyone is aware of what Dreamforce is. It's the yearly conference that happens for Salesforce. It is a very large conference. I always tell the same story, so if you've heard this before, I do apologize. But the last time I went, personally, physically, I know I personally wondered why I was there. And one of the reasons I wondered why I was there was because I was sitting in a hotel boardroom 10 miles away from the conference center, because that's where my session was happening. So they take over the whole city, and essentially it's almost like you're remote even though you're there. It's a very interesting challenge that they have. Now, there's a lot of great things. I recommend anyone that can goes once in their life. But personally, after experiencing that for the last time, I was like, I'm attending all these sessions and they're actually videos on a screen, they're not people. So I'm wondering what the benefit of traveling there was there for me. But that's why we don't go a lot of times, because we can get a lot more value out of doing it remote. So Dreamforce did happen, and as expected, there was a lot of announcements specifically around Agentforce. So Agentforce was released several years ago, and has since gone through several iterations. It went from version 1.0, just Agentforce, to Agentforce 2, to Agentforce 2 DX, and then in June they announced Agentforce 3, and there was a lot of improvements around Agentforce 3, and they did a world tour around that. I know Rachel and I were able to attend it in Toronto, and it was there was a lot of great things that they announced. And it was very obvious at that point, at least from our vantage point, that this was maturing, and was something that we wanted to keep a very close eye on. Last week, they announced that the name has changed again, rebranding, and they're now branding it as Agentforce 360. So that's essentially the next version of Agentforce. Having said that, they've made a lot of rebranding announcements, as Salesforce tends to do. They tend to do that. So not only has Agentforce 360 been rebranded, they have rebranded a lot of the core clouds. So what was known as Service Cloud before, Sales Cloud before, Marketing Cloud before, is now being rebranded as Agentforce Service, Agentforce Sales, Agentforce Marketing Cloud. So it's essentially re-emphasizing that they are That's the core of what they're doing. It's the core of where all the innovation is going to come from in the coming years. So they're trying to send a very clear message, and they've made a huge investment in Agentforce, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of opportunity here. So we're going to tell you about some of those announcements, shortly. But the naming is the first thing. They also renamed Data Cloud. I think this is the third time it's been renamed, unfortunately, but they renamed it to Data 360, and we'll get into that very, very shortly. So essentially, a renaming and a fresh start of this is what Agentforce 360 is about, and here's all the new features. Data 360, which I believe was wasn't even announced to the people presenting Data Cloud until about a week before, because a lot of their presentations still said Data Cloud, and they had to apologize that they didn't even know. So people presenting on this at Salesforce didn't know about the name change. It was apparent. But Data 360, as everyone keeps saying for the past year, it is really going to be the core of how you get your data clean, how you get your data into this Agentforce, this agentic solution. So if your data is not already in Salesforce, it was very obvious why you would use Data Cloud, because you have to pull your data into Salesforce in order to use this. And that will continue with Data 360, but they also announced a lot of other things, which we'll go over when we get to that, those announcements. They announced a lot of features, a lot of functionality, and again, most of it is around Agentforce, but it has some very interesting functionality and opportunities for everyone. Agentforce Vibes was announced, and that's going to allow everyone to essentially create apps, configurations, things that you would normally have to create manually in Salesforce. It's going to allow you to create it through context around, typing in, I'm looking for a report that does this. I'm looking for a dashboard that allows me to do this. I'm using typing. That we'll see in a few minutes. It could be voice, but the reality of it is Agentforce Vibes is playing on this concept that's been talked about quite a bit, vibe coding, and they've released a product called Vibes, which allows you to do vibe coding, which is really just typing in what you're looking for, and AI creates either a mock-up or a starting point for you to then continue from. I don't think it's going to magically create all your code, and I don't think anyone thinks that, but it's going to be able to allow you to create a mock-up very quickly. It's going to allow you to get the first quarter of what you normally do when you're developing solutions or configuring solutions done very quickly. Yeah, so I think, again, that it's interesting to see that they've created a product around it, and that appears to be available in everyone's environment, at least the few I've been into to see if it was available. So it's there for you to look at, and there's a lot of documentation on it. They have, as we mentioned, renamed Agentforce, but they've also renamed the cloud. So you're going to see Agentforce 360 for nonprofits, and then you're going to see Agentforce nonprofit. So what was formerly the nonprofit cloud is now Agentforce nonprofits, not to be confused with Agentforce 360, which is Agentforce's actual product for nonprofits. So the difference is this. In Agentforce, you can create flows, agents that are agentic for a nonprofit. And those individual items or configurations or agents, so to speak, are part of the Agentforce 360 product line. Agentforce 360 for nonprofits are agents that have been developed for the nonprofit world. Agentforce nonprofits is actually what was formerly known as nonprofit cloud. So they've offered a lot of solutions around Agentforce 360 for nonprofits, and a few of those, you know, they're releasing available now is a prospect research agent, which was very interesting watching, you know, the demos of that. It does it seems to do a fairly good job of allowing you to research prospects, and you know, uses AI to do that. I think up till now, people are probably going to Chat GPT and typing in, or you know, Gemini or whatever they are, and researching their prospects kind of out of stream. And this essentially allows you to do it in stream with an agent. So you can summarize wealth, capacity, do assessments on their donations, and summarize milestones of, you know, what they might have done already with you. So it gives you a really nice view of all the information you would imagine you'd want to see with a donor or a prospect. And again, please feel free to add in anything if you guys have seen these demos, keynotes, and want to add any value. Available again last week at Dreamforce was participant management agent. So really this was about, for the most part, tying it into case management. So Nonprofit Cloud now has a pretty amazing case management for dealing with cases, individuals that have challenges, or whatever service you provide, you know, dealing with those individuals in those cases. And this agent allows you to, you know, very quickly get participant goals, create their benefits, because in that model there's the whole benefit model that, you know, says, hey, if this person is part of a referral to us for employment services, I'm using a really bad example, but employment services, and they attend our how to write a resume course, the benefits are this, and this just does it automatically for you rather than having to put in those individually. Creating interaction notes, and there's a whole referral piece to this as well, where and that's part of the native Nonprofit Cloud case management, where you can refer people in and out and across your organization. Very interesting work happening there, and we're excited to see how that all ties into some of the existing customers' missions. Some of our new customers are going to be using this very aggressively, and it's going to be tied into Avocado in a lot of cases, because the programs they're offering are in Avocado. So they're offering a safe driving course, but they've been referred through a traffic violation to the safe driver course. So that's an example that's happening. But there's a lot of other examples that you can imagine, and I'm sure you guys all have your own. So that framework's there, and I know next month we're going to do a deep dive into Nonprofit Cloud. Sorry, I've got to stop calling it that. Agentforce Cloud, Agentforce for nonprofits, Agentforce nonprofits, and volunteer, which we'll get into. There was an announcement about volunteer capacity and coverage agent. It is in beta right now, but it's looking to be available for general availability in February, and that's, you know, what it sounds like. It's an agent that's going to allow you to very quickly use an agent to find unfulfilled shifts, match volunteers to shifts. You know, in the past we would have called that a workflow or a script, but Agentforce does a lot. It does it a lot differently and a lot more efficiency. Available at Dreamforce, you know, they made the volunteer management available. So just a quick recap on the volunteer management module. It was announced and released that the data model came, I think it was in the spring of this year. And really what they did was they released the ability for you to build your own apps. They put the data model so that you knew you could put in, you know, volunteers, initiatives, they call them, shifts, all these different things. They built out the data model and gave it to us, but they didn't give us an app. Now, some people went out and built their own apps on top of that data model, but they did announce that in the fall, they were going to release volunteer management, and that's what they've done. There's very little information on it. Most of the sessions and announcements revolved around the Agentforce piece of this, not the application piece of it. And that was a bit disappointing for me, at least, because I was expecting it to be a lot more front and center, because I know a lot of people were wanting the volunteer management app. And the challenge that I wanted to point out is, I had a hard time finding it in the sea of information of Dreamforce, and I was looking for it, so it was a bit of a challenge. I really only found, I think it was like a 3-second clip in any of the announcements on this, and then I had to go look, and just to verify, we are seeing it installed in some people's organizations already, and it was just installed today. So I think it was a little earlier today, in the AM. It was updated and installed in a few organizations that we were watching. So very excited to see this. This is a deep dive on this is what we're planning to do for the next user group. So if you're interested in volunteer management, or you have people in your org that manage volunteers, I'd urge you to invite them to that next month's user group. So purpose-built agents, prospect research, participant management have been released already. They're generally general availability, and the volunteer capacity and coverage agent is in beta right now, and looking forward to seeing that in February in everyone's environment. It was interesting watching, and this is getting a little more into the understanding if we're ready for an agentic organization, and if Salesforce is ready. When you watched their demonstrations of an agent, there was during the nonprofit keynote, there was a live demo, and it didn't go well. And it was interesting because this is the same demo I saw in June, when we went to the world tour for Agentforce 3.0, and that one didn't go well either. So it was very interesting to me, where I was like, is this ready for prime time? Now, I think there's a lot of good that Agentforce can do, and the agents have matured a lot, and I do think they're ready, but we want to be careful what we use them for, is what it kind of highlighted to me, because if the professional demoing this in front of 50,000 people can't get it to work and has to revert back to oh, this worked a minute ago, that is a bit of a challenge. And I do see that it's matured a lot, though, and it's coming, and we'll get into that a little more. The poor guy, unfortunately, I think the demo guys just hit him, and that happens. It's just, I find it very strange that it was the same demo that we saw at Agentforce 3.0 and it didn't work. More on that in a bit. They did announce a beta in November coming for the Agentforce Builder. So if anyone has played with the Agentforce Builder, it was good. It got a lot better with 3.0, but they've made it even better. And there's a lot of great features that are coming with that. I don't mind. I hope you don't mind me sharing, Rachel. We sat through a session where we were creating an agent with the Agentforce Builder, and we were supposed to use voice. they gave us headsets, and they were telling us to just tell the agent what we need, and it didn't work. But when we typed what we needed, we got better results. And in essence, I think it's matured a lot, and most of the demos you saw during Dreamforce, it worked really well, where you could type in, I'm looking for an agent with this. I need it to act this way. I need it to have sensitivity to X. Like there's a very interesting transformation happening. Talking about voice and compared to typing, or creating vibe coding. I just wanted to share, you're seeing the progression from, it used to be you had to develop things with code, and then Salesforce started pitching clicks, not code. Now we're pitching voice, not code, and using agents, not code, which is very interesting. It'll never replace code, but it's getting closer, is what I'm trying to point out. They did introduce some more advanced observability. So there's some features coming in November around being able to observe what's going on with these agents. So the key of introducing agents isn't just setting them up and leaving them. It's understanding how they're interacting with your customers. Are they actually answering what they're supposed to answer? Are they frustrating your customers? So with Salesforce, who has been using it for some time, they, in the early days, they reviewed 50% of every interaction. They reviewed it, kind of like a quality assurance test. The agent said this, and then the customer said that. What did the agent respond correctly? No, we need to make a tweak, and that's how they learned how to make sure that the agent was responding correctly. So observability is really, really key. And there's more tools coming around observability, monitoring and measuring it, optimizing it in a lot easier and faster way. With the releases around the builder, they also are releasing Agent Script, which is a scripting engine that allow us to code. And really, I know I'm sounding a little like like I'm on repeat, but it's maturing, is what this is telling us. It used to be you couldn't do this, now you can do this. So these are tools that you need to succeed if you're going to release Agentforce, and that's a good sign for us. They did release Agentforce Voice, and Agentforce Voice has some interesting features. It's supposed to, I'll be very careful how I word this. It's supposed to detect tone, and you can see how it's maturing, where it's not just a voice IVR, press 3 to talk to, or to understand our hours. It's supposed to, detect that this person's upset, and I better deal with this in a different way. And tying that, through to a script or an agent, and being able to see it with the observability is the key to this. There's been a lot of criticism from Salesforce around not focusing enough on voice, because there's a lot of other voice solutions out there that have AI agents. I mean, they've been around forever. And some would say that Salesforce was a bit late to the game with voice. But we're seeing that they're making up for that. They're releasing some great features. And the real key here is because and if you store your data in Salesforce, it's nice to have that voice agent in Salesforce now, because it's going to make everyone's life easier rather than trying to disconnect it. So voice was announced. And again, there's a lot of announcements, as you can see here. They're really using Agentforce for everything, including the I wouldn't say announcement, but the maturity of the setup with Agentforce. So this has been going on a year now that they've been talking about setup for Agentforce, and you can see it maturing. And if anyone has seen any of the demos with it, it's you can kind of see where it's going, and it's exciting for administrators, because you don't have to read a 300-page document to configure nonprofit cloud anymore. You will be able in the future to use setup with Agentforce, and it'll set up nonprofit cloud for you. Like, those types of things are really exciting. It's going to support it is supporting presently natural language, so you'll be able to ask it common and min tasks, like how do I set up this feature in nonprofit cloud, or how do I add a new user, and it is context sensitive, or it's going to have context help in navigation. So it's not just about doing it for you, it's also going to point you in the direction. I'm trying to set up a user and I can't get them, they still don't have access to this. A good example that I saw in one of the demos was tell me does Rachel have access to the accounts object? And it'll literally tell you, yes, this is the permission she has. Now I know how to go and see that, but being able to type it in natural language is quite a different thing. And it telling me what's going on, or how it's set up, That's very interesting. Um, and it is more of a modernized setup experience. This might not be important to you guys, but I will reiterate that Salesforce is not very modernized when it comes to how you set it up. Behind the scenes, it always has been a bit of a challenge. You have to be very, very technical to set it up. And this is hopefully going to change some of that, which is very exciting. Um, so this is what it would look like when you go to set up in the future, where it's going to have, describe your task or question, and it'll actually have common actions that you could set up here. What that looks like right now anyways, and this could change, is they're presently piloting it, which they've been piloting since earlier in this year at the DX conference. I think there was a lot of talk about this. And they're looking to release a beta in December, and then provide general availability at the next DX conference, which is the development conference that happens in March every year. A couple other exciting announcements. I'm not sure if anyone has ever looked at Scale Center, but it allows you to see what's going on, how your system's performing internally. So far, you probably looked at trust.salesforce.com to see if the system's up or down, and it's really like an on-off switch. Whereas Scale Center allows you to see, was there locks during my registration? How many were there? And those types of things. What was the CPU utilization? And up till now, this has only been available for certain licenses. So as of Dreamforce, it's available to everyone now, which is awesome. That makes everyone's life easier when there is performance issues. They also provided general availability for something called Apex Guru Insights, and that allows us as developers to be able to see what's going on with code, and and use AI to actually help us make your system better. The rest of that I won't go into right now, but bottom line is the first one's a very exciting one, where we can now see how your instance of Salesforce is reacting to your registration at that exact time. It might sound like a little thing, but if anyone who's ever had a performance issue, trying to get information from Salesforce is a challenge. You tend not to be able to get it. And now they've just made it available natively to everyone, which is awesome. So now we can help ourselves. So, this is something that we talked about before, I believe, and I just wanted to, I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of this. A lot of announcements about Agentforce. Everyone might not be right for Agentforce. However, it's definitely coming. An agentic nonprofit, if it's not this year, it's next year. Like, it's going to be there. So we have to prepare ourselves. And I liked this approach and this mindset, and I thought I'd just share it. Really, it's summarizing, taking it into 3 different phases. You don't want to start with phase 3, allowing the agent to just take autonomous options. I thought you might want a membership, so I just sold you one. Like, that's not a good idea. But it might be a good idea for certain things. You want to start with level 1. And level 1 is really just about answering questions. Whether that's for your staff or for your customers, that's where we see the journey starting with Avocado. We don't see jumping to actually registering someone for even a program. We see pointing them at the program so they can register for it. Even that, when we created a beta of that, it didn't work as we expected. It was very challenging, and we're so excited to see some of the new features that are going to make that work smoother. So we might be there now. We'll do another beta 2.0 to see, okay, can this actually work now? And if it can, that's when we'll introduce it to you. But so far, what we found was, we did a quick agent that allowed customers to go on your portal and say, hey, I'm looking for something on Saturday, or I'm looking for a swim lesson. And it was aware of who you were and what you've already taken in your family, and was, meant to recommend and really just display a list of links to say, are you interested in swim 2? I see little Johnny had swim 1. Does he want swim 2? And allow him to click there and then just take him right to the portal and let him register. The challenge is we weren't getting consistent results, which is very consistent with what we're seeing even within Salesforce. For those that aren't aware, Salesforce stopped us from creating tickets, help tickets, without using Agentforce. So they had a form where we could fill out a ticket, and then they replaced it with Agentforce. And I think it was about a month, and they had to turn it back on because the agent didn't give you everything you needed. There was a fairly large percentage of the time that it actually didn't allow you to open the ticket correctly, or it opened it in the wrong area. It was very interesting what was happening. So they turned it off. So it just wasn't ready at that time. But they've since matured, and it's better now. So we're hoping that's the case, and we would like to see starting with just, the answer a question, phase 1. Phase 2 would be, answer the question and, ask for permission to take the action. And that's where we'll go later. Right now, we're just going to display in the first version. We believe we're just going to display, click here to register. In the second version, it would be, would you like to register? But we're not there yet. We still need to make sure version 1 works before we go to version 2. But this is a really good path to go down. And it's going to take us some time to do it. We've got to make sure it works, and we don't want to frustrate your users at all. So that is a bit about that. What I wanted to point out is the key takeaways. Oh, I'm sorry, Caitlin. We're on the last slide. The key takeaways that we had were the agentic enterprise is here to stay. It's not going away. A lot of people thought that AI and the agents might not stand the test of time, but it's very obvious that there's a lot of value, a lot of ROI, and it's going to continue. So our message is let's be aware of that. Agentforce 360 will connect to each of the industries and products, as you saw. So that's where the innovation from Salesforce is going to come in the future. They're making most of their investments there, and it's going to be a very exciting next couple of years. We're excited to see what they do with it. Message 3 is we need to get started. We recommend you guys get started, even if it's just knowledge like this or taking a trailhead. You would be best served to start to understand how this will impact your organization. We'd like to be part of that discussion to make sure that, sorry. We'd like to be part of that discussion to make sure that what we're doing aligns with what you're doing. We're here for you. So what we develop on top of Avocado to do this, or to enhance Avocado with Agentforce, we want to make sure that it aligns with what you need. So more to come on that. We're not going to just develop a final product without talking to you. We need to talk to you guys. Before we do that, we would like to do a few more betas and understand how our trial applications, and understand how if it's ready to take to the next level or not. So that's our takeaways and presentation. Is there any questions or thoughts? Is everyone excited about an agent, an agentic agent? Or not excited? It's all right to be the opposite too, saying we're not interested in this right now. I'm going to put Caitlin on the spot, even though she just joined, if that's all right. In talking with Calgary YMCA, they're re-emphasizing some messages like, they're very concierge style. They want face-to-face, right? And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at agents, because there's still a need. It's just maybe not trying to, not help a person and not talk and only do agents. Sorry, Caitlin, I know you just joined.
No, that's okay. Sorry, time zone messed me up today, so that's always fun. But hopefully they'll be in the recording afterwards. I know you guys usually do. So yeah, I think we will get those like Dreamforce updates this week from Salesforce as well. And I've been noticing the agent force has been like seem to be very big. And Matt, you're spot on. Like, we're really excited and looking into the possibilities here. But I think with anything like this, because we're also trying to make sure we're still like aligned with the Y way and that experience, we're trying to be super thoughtful about when we do take this on, we want to be thoughtful about the way that we like train the agent in the way that it responds and the types of questions that we're using the agent for versus like how we can escalate to a real person in certain scenarios. And so just that's kind of our key focus is like, how do we do this in the right way, really thoughtfully, and not like rush it out too fast just to like be using it, but do it really thoughtfully. But it's exciting because I think from what I've seen, they seem to be putting the right tools in place to hopefully make it easier for us to make those kinds of decision trees in the setup. So
Thank you, Caitlin.
sorry for jumping in late, but hopefully that was still somewhat relevant.
Oh, it was, absolutely. And the only reason I called on you is just because I literally just heard like how important the Y way was important to you, and face to face, and yeah. Excellent. Ella.
I think the most exciting part to me is the guidance to staff on how to do things. Like, create me a report with the structure. Those examples are exactly what would change our day-to-day lives, I think, the most. Because the people who are serving customers, whether you have an agent or not, some people are never going to use this. So that life is not going to change. Like, we're still going to have people serving the customers, answering the questions, getting their issues resolved. So that's going to always continue. But the internal guidance and how to use the systems and how to use and how to make it easier to use, like create a program like this, and then I don't get the voice command, like you can just type it, so I'm not really too excited about the voice command one. But even if I type, if it can do things for me, then that's a life. Like, I think that's a changer.
Do you mind if I share a thought? And it's interesting. At least it's a vantage point I think about a little bit. And maybe it's not important to everyone, but I'll still share it. What I've noticed over the last year is the technicians at TechShare don't go in and write things anymore. They don't start from scratch. They go out to ChatGPT or out to Gemini, say, I'm looking to do this, and it gives them a script to do it. So they're already doing this. It's just now connected in it, which is interesting. And it's more natural. It's not, you don't have to be a tech. I shouldn't say it's more natural because I haven't seen it, but it's intending to be more natural. So
the connectedness is the key. I think you have a really good point, because I do that too. Like, I go in like, how do I do this in Salesforce? It gives me a generic like answer on how to do it, but I'm like, but how am I going to do it in mine?
But what I was trying to point out, and I don't know how they're doing this, so if any one of the technicians at TechShare wants to speak up, they literally, in some cases, are creating scripts to do it, so they're not even actually doing it anymore. they're letting ChatGPT create code, create like metadata, I think is the way they're doing it. Sorry, I know a little bit, and updating the metadata. But anyways, very interesting, Ella. You're absolutely right. It'll be interesting to see how it's in the product and works naturally. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Caitlin, yes.
I jump right back in, but Ella, I 100% agree as well on the staff, the way that like the agent can be used from the staff side. I know in our conversations around like what is the the best way to kind of start integrating this into our process. We really like the idea of like, even if we are going to use it for, you know, kind of some customer facing ways of like case management or stuff later on down the road to help with escalation, I think there's also such value to being able to start with a staff facing one, just to like understand what we're actually setting up and the longer implications of that before we jump straight into making it customer facing as well. So like, I think for us, we really see that staff facing agent as like our phase one, and before we kind of see, do we and how do we want to implement this from a customer facing. So I'm like in such agreement, such a good point on the staff facing side.
I would say that we've heard that a few times too, Ella, so it's good. I think you're aligned with more than just Caitlin from what we've heard. So that's good. Yeah. Excellent. I urge everyone to go to Salesforce Plus, you know, even just if you're just going to watch the keynote or maybe the nonprofit keynote, that's a nice one to watch. There's lots of material there. Rachel, you had your.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on to Caitlin and Ella's point that like that's a spot we see a lot of value, because we really struggle to make sure we can accommodate everyone's SOPs right now. It's obviously hard when we have a lot of different organizations with a lot of different policies. So someone may give 30 days to cancel a membership. Someone's policy may be a week. With Agentforce, like it gives us the flexibility to be like, your recommended path is this, because that's what you all set up for your data logic. So that's something we're really looking forward to when we go down that route, is how do we make it so that it's customizable to your org and your org's kind of guidelines and rules, and not just membership cancellations as a whole. Sorry, just wanted to add that piece, but very much in agreement with both of you as well.
Excellent. the only thing I was disappointed about, and I think I've said it already, is, you know, I was so excited about the volunteer management, and then there just was no hype about it. It was just, I had to like pry. I literally had to call some Salesforce account reps and say, where is it? What's going on? You told me it was going to be here, and I couldn't find it, which is very interesting. And then they couldn't find it. I actually had to go find it myself by looking through the help that was, again, just released today. Very interesting. Yeah, there's volunteer management module is going to be, it's available right now, but we're going to do a session on it next month, just to repeat that, a deep dive on nonprofit cloud and volunteer management. Now, obviously, that does require nonprofit cloud, just to make sure everyone's aware. And there's paths, but we'll have to talk about those paths. If you're presently not on nonprofit cloud and you're on NPSP, or you're an early install, there's paths to get to the new versions. But we'll go over all that in next month's session. The installation, I very cautiously called it an installation. The 300 things you have to do to make it install. We've gotten down pat, and we just seen them today, but they're very similar to the things that we're seeing in nonprofit cloud. In nonprofit cloud, you know, without going into too much detail, what's happening is with the whole foundations piece. You remember that from a few sessions ago, where they're sharing products across industries now. What's happening is it's a little disconnected to set up, because now, just to give you a simple example, volunteer management, you have to go and set up the grant management form system, because it uses a piece of that, because they're now sharing code. So you're almost like, when I say it's like 300 things, you're like going over this document, and then to this document, and then to that document, and then to this document, and it's all over the place. It's really hard to follow the bouncing ball. But what we've done is we've downloaded the instructions. Thank you, Sarah, and put all of the in almost like a script, saying, you know, rather than trying to bounce to 300 spots, here's one place where it tells you where you bounce next. So it's a little cleaner. Looking forward to that, but we're going to install it and play with it for the next few weeks at least, before we present it to you. Well, I really appreciate everyone's questions, and I really appreciate you guys attending. If there's any questions outside of this, please let us know. The last point we tried to make was we really want to be part of your journey, and we want to make sure that our journey includes you. So always ask. Please don't hesitate to ask, so that we can make sure we're all aligned. Thank you.
And if you want to try vibe coding, try it in your sandbox first, please.
Yeah, sandbox for sure.
Please try it in sandbox first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.